So I'm Michael Johnson, Olympic champion, world champion, and former world record holder. And a few years ago, I turned 50, and which was a major milestone. And yeah, everything was going great. And one day, I was actually just training in my gym here at my house, as I do every day. And after I finished my training session, started to get a weird sort of sensation in my left leg and my arm, and couldn't really coordinate my leg. Was having a lot of difficulty. Almost fell down. And then I was experiencing some numbness and tingling in my left arm. Really weird sensation. Out of an abundance of caution, really, that we'd go to the emergency room. And we did that, and ultimately, and things just continued to get worse from there. Couldn't walk, couldn't stand, and ultimately, I was diagnosed as having had a stroke deep in the right side of my brain. Ronnie, you've had a similar experience, I understand. So I'd love to hear more about your experience and what happened to you. It's always fascinating to hear stroke survivors and sort of, fellow stroke survivors and what their journey was like.
Yeah, no, great to meet you, Michael. Thanks for doing the chat. My name's Ronnie Staton. I was 38 when I had the stroke. So I actually had it on Christmas Eve because, like yourself, I train every day. And at the time, I was training for a sub 3-hour marathon. I felt just a little bit lethargic, strangely unmotivated, but not particularly ill. I got on the treadmill and just started warming up, and I progressively began to feel much worse. My entire left side had become paralyzed, so I was hanging on with my right arm onto the treadmill, but I couldn't move my left arm up to hit stop. So thankfully, somebody eventually came and dragged me off of the treadmill, and I realized that I couldn't walk. Having it in the gym, the gym manager recognized stroke symptoms, hence the FAST campaign. The gym manager had seen the face, the arm, the speech, and the time, and was trained in that. Well, again, thankfully, he did. And yes, I was having a stroke.
Wow. I was in the same situation where, I could have very easily just said, oh, it was a tough workout, which it wasn't really, but, just one of those days, I'll just sleep it off. And that probably would have been catastrophic. And time is one of the most important ones. And it sounds like we both benefited from that. For me, it was getting to the hospital, getting medical care quick enough so that they could start to really assess what was happening to me and understand what I needed to do next. And it sounded like for you as well. What happened? What was next for you? What happened once the ambulance got you to hospital?
So the ambulance came to the gym and took me to our local city hospital. And I had after the scans and whatever, confirming the stroke, I had a thrombolysis, so I had the clot busting drug. However, it didn't work. The clot was so huge in my brain that the blood flow still couldn't get past that clot. Luckily for me, I was transported to Nottingham, about an hour away from Lincoln, where they perform an absolute miracle operation known as a thrombectomy. This is where they go in through your groin with a wire and actually feed it up into your brain and mechanically claw out the clot, remove the clot. I went in there dying and paralyzed, and I came out, and I've made a good recovery. So within 3 days, I'd left the hospital, and I remember feeling terrified actually to go home. When I had the stroke, my son was only 9 months old, and my daughter was only 2 years old, and I've got a stepson who's 11. Going back to a house with young children where I felt like I was struggling to come to terms with everything, struggling physically, very tired, mentally just trying to understand what's just happened to me. It's a very frightening thing to leave hospital actually, and everyone thought that must be great. You're going home so fast because of the operation being so successful. But I didn't actually feel that way. I was actually quite happy in hospital in case I had another one or in case something went wrong.
When I left, I was there for a week. I was ready to get into my recovery, and because I knew that was the next step for me. I was out of danger, but whether or not I was going to actually be able to get my livelihood back was my biggest concern, and what my life was going to be like as a stroke survivor. And because I couldn't walk well, I couldn't put any real pressure on my leg. I couldn't. My fine motor skills, my left hand, had deteriorated pretty badly. So I started therapy, physical therapy, and rehab in the hospital. And but the first day that I was allowed to actually start to try to walk, I actually was pretty encouraged. It wasn't ordinarily, it wouldn't be that encouraging, I think, to the average person, because it took me about 10 minutes to cover a distance of 200 meters, which I used to be the world record holder, and then covered that distance in 19 seconds. That I was encouraged because I recognized that what it was going to take for me to get back was the same sort of mental fortitude, the same sort of commitment and focus that I had when I was an athlete. So I was very fortunate to, have learned as an athlete that sort of discipline, that sort of commitment, and where the motivation comes from to get up every day and really go at it, and, maybe not feel like you actually, progressed today, but to be able to come back tomorrow and go back at it again, despite the fact that today didn't feel that great, because you're going to have those days. In addition to that, it can't be understated just the importance of, my family and the support of them and friends. And I had put it out on social media that I'd had a stroke, and the support of strangers, fans, people who were just so very supportive was really, really key for me.
Yeah, like yourself, that support network around you. So friends and, even if it's just from messages coming in, my wife was amazing, because I think in many ways it was more difficult for her sometimes to have watched me go through that. And with such a young family, be terrified of the consequences of it. And does not know why, still don't know why I had the stroke. So, yeah, and the Stroke Association, I went to one or two group meets where I got to speak to other people, other stroke survivors. So that was very helpful as well. And hear just the differences and the similarities between others. I think that's one of the great things the Stroke Association does, is bring stroke survivors together. I mean, in terms of if anybody's listening that's going through it now, and I was really low for a good few months after the stroke with all those unknowns. I think what really helped me with my recovery, once I was allowed to get going and start things up, was to stay really present day to day, and just real small goals, real marginal gain, incremental goals day on day, rather than the real big long distance goals, making it more short term. And also as well, I found it was difficult to, and I didn't always get it right, but I kept comparing to my former self before the stroke. And although objectively from a training perspective that might have been helpful for the numbers and to see where you're at, but emotionally it was doing me no favors at all. And of course that injustice, that feeling that you get of why did this happen to me, when I look after myself and I train. And
I totally agree with you there. For any, that's been my advice to anyone that's recovering right now from a stroke. It's find your motivation. That was the most important thing for me. Find your motivation. That becomes your goal, and focus on that, and try to just remain focused as much as possible. It's been great talking to you, and good luck with everything in the future. Wish you all the best.
No, thank you very much.
I hope you've enjoyed hearing mine and Ronnie's stories at this event. It's been incredible to discuss our stories and the rebuilding of lives with the Stroke Association. To support them, please visit www.stroke.org.uk/save research.